I'm Tom Selzer from Livewire, and joining me today is Nicholas Condoleon from Ausbil to discuss the Ausbil Active Sustainable Equity Fund, Active ETF. Nicholas, thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Nicholas, can you just give us a quick overview of Ausbil and the Active ETF, ticker code ASUS?
Sure. So Ausbil is an Australian-based investment manager. We've been operating in the Australian market for almost 30 years now and managing about $20 billion with funds under management. So look, we're a sizable firm, got good longevity, got good traction with our clients, and the sustainable's a new iteration, I guess, to the ETF portfolio that we've been launching. So it stands for the Ausbil Sustainable Fund, and we're really excited about the prospects. The fund itself has actually been up and running for almost 9 years now. We've got good traction, good support from our client base, and it's been a good performing fund as well, which is pleasing.
And what would you say sets you apart in the way that you invest?
Well, I think it goes back to who Ausbil is. As I said, we've been around for almost 30 years. We've got quite a unique process. We have a top-down, bottom-up process. So we look at the macroeconomic environment firstly, before we go down and drill into stocks and sectors, and then portfolio construction. So a very disciplined process, and that top-down really differentiates us from our competitors, I'd say.
And if we drill down a bit into the ETF itself, it targets ASX 200 companies that meet your sustainability criteria. But what would you say is the key opportunity here for investors?
Look, I think in terms of investors, you're getting a professionally managed fund through Ausbil, which is, got a really strong name in ESG investing. We've got our own in-house proprietary ESG team, 3 full-time members, and they conduct ESG research across the ASX 200. And what's really important to us is engagement. So we meet with companies on a very regular basis. In fact, we do about 200 meetings a year with companies, and that engagement is really important. It helps with our policy advocacy, I should say, and issues or topics like modern slavery. We've really made a strong name for ourselves. In fact, Mons Carlson, who's our head of ESG, has actually won an award, an Australian award, for the work that he's done on modern slavery.
And what would you say are the key risks around this strategy, and how do you manage them at Ausbil?
Sure. So look, it is a challenging fund to manage an ordinary Australian equities fund because we exclude about 25% of companies in the ASX 200. That's because we exclude controversial activities, and that's really important. I think that also differentiates us from some of our peers in the market. But that also comes with challenges because as soon as you start excluding stocks and big sectors of the market, then from time to time you will get returns which move away from the benchmark. But what we've found over the past 8.5 years is that those deviations from the benchmark tend to be quite short term. And when we recover, we actually recover very strongly. For example, in recent weeks with the energy crisis, of course, we can't invest in fossil fuels and energy stocks. So of course, when they're flavour of the month for investors, that's quite challenging for us. But like I said, we just stick to our process. We look for the opportunities, and there are always opportunities. And we've found that we rebound very strongly, and that's set up a really nice track record for the fund.
You just mentioned the oil crisis there, but I'm interested in hearing how you manage times where there's an obvious trade that you can't take part in this case, obviously fossil fuels. How do you think about the portfolio and the fund in those instances?
Sure. Look, it presents challenges, but the great thing about the fund is it is part of Ausbil and the suite of Ausbil funds. So we're all part of the same process. We all stick to the same process. And that process really helps us, move and pivot into other areas of the market where there may be opportunities. And also, although we are excluded from, say, energy stocks and fossil fuel stocks, we're not excluded from the materials or the resources space more broadly. So we're looking at critical minerals and some of the green metals, as we call them. We're talking lithium, rare earths, copper, for example. These are all essential ingredients to help the world move to renewables. So we've got big exposures in those parts of the market, and that can counter any offsets that we're seeing in the fossil fuel parts of the market, right? So presents a bit of a counterbalance, I should say, and that helps us weather periods like this. Also gold, we've got an exposure to gold, and we can play in that part of the market. So again, it can cushion inflationary shocks or geopolitical shocks, and that's also helped us as well navigate these sort of turbulent times.
And what role do you think ASUS can play in an investor portfolio?
Look, I think it gives people the opportunity to invest in ESG product and fund, and I think it demonstrates that you don't need to have or sacrifice returns to have an exposure to an ESG product. So I think increasingly we live in a world and environment where investors are looking for these specialised products and specialised funds. And I think it can fit really well alongside maybe a core product or core strategy, but particularly for investors who are increasingly becoming ESG aware and ESG conscious. I think it really provides an excellent solution for them and their investment horizon.
And where can investors find out more about the fund?
Sure, I'd always direct them to go to our website, so ausbil.com.au, and also speak to your financial advisor.
Nicholas, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for your time.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel for more great videos.